Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Nour Marshaha. I'm a prosthodontic resident in Riyadh Alim University. I graduated from Tisch University 2010. Today I'm going to talk about the description of color replication process, and aesthetics. All of us know that we have to understand the color description to achieve an aesthetic restoration. It's necessary to understand the process in which the color and translucency of fixed restorations are planned and obtained, so as to replicate the color and contour of its adjacent teeth. Any errors, especially in the color replication process, have been a problem, right? So, we are here today to talk about the principles of color, light, and human perception as they related to color replication process and aesthetics of fixed restoration. The color, it's like a solid body, so we can describe it by three dimensions: length, width, and depth, right? So there's two systems are explained the color. First one is Munsell color order system, and the second is CIELAB color system that is more quantitative. Munsell color order system is popular method, okay, of visual describing color. The three attributes of color in this system are called hue, chroma, and value. So, what about the hue? A hue, it describes the actual colors. So it defines the object. It can be red, green, yellow, and so on. What about the chroma? Chroma is defined as the intensity of a hue. The saturation and chroma are used in the color. So, in dental literature, both mean the strength of a given hue, right? So, a simple way to visualize differences in chroma is to imagine a bucket of water. When one drop of ink is added, a solution of low chroma results. And now, adding a second drop of ink increases what? Increases the chroma. And that is mean if we add more of the solution, so it's obtained that is almost all ink and consequently of light chroma. So, chroma is a saturation, okay, of a color. What about the value? Value define that it's relative to brightness or darkness of the color. So we can see how it's going to be darker and lighter. So the brightness of any object is a direct consequence of the amount of light energy that reflects or transmitted the light. So a restoration that has too high value is too bright, may be easily detected by an observer and in a common aesthetic problem in Vita ceramic prosthodontics. Now, I prefer the Vita Classic Shade Guide. I always use it in my dental office. When you use any guide, you have to let your lab use the same guide. So when you do the color application process in your dental office, you have to let your dental lab to know the exact guidance that you use in your dental office, and he has to use the same. He has to use the same, okay? So we can see this arrangement of Vita Classic Sheet Guide, and now I'm going to talk about the meaning of each shade. For A, it's related to orange, B to yellow, C yellow gray, D brown gray. What does it mean? That means when we are going to D, we have more chroma in a color. So when we are going to A, we have more value. Okay, so A is brighter, right? And D4 is darker. That means value. And what about the chroma? Chroma, that is a saturation of the color. Yani, going to talk about, for example, D2, less saturation than D4. For example, we can see also this picture, it will explain more about the value and chroma. B1 has highest value and lowest chroma of this guide, but C4 has lowest value, highest chroma. When you can understand this, you can understand all the definition of the color. Now, when you will take the shade, you have to look at a neutral color in your data office. When you're taking it, you have to take it in a seconds. Don't take a long time while taking your dental restorations color, because you have to take it as fast as much as you can. When you find that the color of the restorations is between A1, B2, how we can distinguish between these colors, how we can choose the specific color that our tooth is the same of the adjacent. That will explain it today very well. When you take the shade, you have to understand that the tooth is not like any object. It's like an anatomical structure. You have to understand that you have a color of the incisal, a color of the body, a color of the cervical. You have to match each point of these with the adjacent teeth to take exactly the same color of the other teeth. What about the Munsell color order system, hue? We can see about this wheel, the color around the wheel and its arrangement around it. This is a hue. That means red, yellow, green, blue, and etc. So, it's determined a wavelength of the reflected or transmitted light observed. The shorter the wavelength, okay, the closer the hue is violet portion of the spectrum. The longer the wavelength, the closer it's to the red portion. So, in the Munsell color system, hues are arranged around the wheel. What about the saturation? Saturation or chroma are used in dental literature. The intensity of chroma of a particular hue is more intense on the outer rim than near the hub of the wheel. The same example that I talked before when I started the lecture, that a simple way to visualize differences in a chroma is to imagine a bucket of water. When one drop of ink is added, a solution of low chroma results. Adding a second drop of ink increases the chroma, and so on, until solution is obtained that is almost all ink and consequently of high chroma. What about the value? Value we can see, like when we use a mobile, we can make the screen more bright or less bright, more darker. That means value. So it's related to lightness or darkness of a color or brightness of an object. The brightness of any object is a direct consequence of the amount of light energy the object reflects or transmits. It's possible for an object of different hues to reflect the same number of photons and thus have the same brightness or value. So, arrangement of value and chroma in the Munsell system, it's like this picture. What about the CIELAB color system? This system is used in a machine color replication. It has 3 color spaces, L, A, and B. So it's more quantitative. We can see this case. My patient came to me. He was smoking. He had bad oral health. And when I started his case before, I tried to do scaling and polishing, good polishing, to know the exact color of his teeth. I didn't advise him to change his color by whitening because he was smoking. And he came to change this bridge for the 4 anteriors on the upper teeth, 21, 22, 1, 1, and 1, 2. He said it's not matching the color or the shade or shape of other adjacent teeth. So I started work on the teeth by scaling and polishing. Let patient take care of his teeth and explain to him how to take care at home, because the cooperation between patients and dentists is so important to make your restorations much better for more time. So then I put temporary, and after that we have the final restoration that is matching the same of the adjacent teeth, and you can see how the translucency of the incisor, how is the value for the body, how is the cervical darker, it's the same of the adjacent. So it's very important when you want to make an aesthetic restoration, you have to exactly understand the color system. Now we are going to see this case. Also, she came to my clinic, want to change centrals. She put restorations to close the diastema between the two centrals. She's 27 years like this. She didn't smoke before, and I tried to change the color, okay, to make it the same of adjacent teeth color, shape and shade, just to be matching.
هاي من جنب 90 درجة، ما في أي بروز. شوفوا textures details، وهي لسه دراي، مو مركبين. for cementation آخر سمايل. أنا كتير مبسوطة بالنتيجة الحمد لله. شايفين الكولر كيف طالع exactly the same وتماما ما بدنا. شايفين الشفافية.
So, the phase of color replication should be in the dental office, which the information of the color and translucency of the adjacent teeth to be matched and recorded through either visual shade matching or instrumental color analysis. Shade matching phase. We have to understand that the light is necessary for color to exist, right? So when we have any object and we have light on this object, we can see the color of this object. So the light is necessary for color to exist. An object that is perceived as certain color absorbed all light waves. A restoration that has too high a value, is too bright, may be easily detected by any observer, and is a common aesthetic problem in metaceramic orthodontic. So, when we are going to take a color of restoration, we have to understand that the quality of light source is so important. It should be used during visual shade matching, right? So the color and the light of the light that we use in dental office should be equal, the same angles when you are taking the shade of the tooth, okay? Be careful of the shadows and any other colors that affect taking the shade while doing it at the dental office. Unfortunately, the most common light source in dental office are incandescent or fluorescent. So I try to do combination between the white color and yellow color, just to make a neutral color, okay? So we can see this case. My patient came to me, wants to change the lateral. She said it's not matching the shape and shade of other teeth. So I try to start with this patient. As always, we have to also understand the concept of the gum, how it's important for our aesthetic cases. And I guide my patient how to take care of her gum after giving her a protocol for taking care of the gum massage and mouthwash. So I remove her old restoration first, and then I prepare direct restoration temporary at the same visit, and I try to reduce the margin and instruct my patient to do massage for the gingiva and take care of her oral health. So a week after week, my gum get better shape, just to be almost exactly the same of the adjacent lateral. And then I start fabrication of the restoration for that lateral, and I try to make it matching as much as I can, because not achieving the same length of the gum, it was there was maybe 0.25 millimeter. That's why I tried to change a shape of the restoration. So the light, when it comes on the restoration, it will disappear on the cervical area. So the cervical area will be, for my eye, darker than I can see in actual size. We can imagine when we have someone who is gaining weight, you can let him wear a white blouse with a black waist color. So when the light comes frontal direction, you can see that this human in a fat weight, he's getting to your eyes thinner. That is the same of how we can manage our light source on an object, and how we can take care of the anatomic shape of the tooth, and how it reflects the shade and make the shape shorter or smaller or bigger. That means we can fabricate the shape and shade by taking care of the anatomy, the light point, the line angle, the incisal edge. So we can do fabrication. If we have to understand the color, we have to understand how to do a good anatomical structure. Visual shade matching. The visual shade matching has three main factors: lightening, subjectivity of a human vision, and the object. So, the influence the outcome of visual shade matching, the dentist can improve the accuracy of this process. So, we talked that a light is very important. An object that perceived a certain color observe all light waves corresponding to other colors and reflect only the waves of the object colors. For example, an object that absorbs blue and green light and reflects red light appears red, right? So the eye is sensitive only to the visible part of the electromagnetic spectrum. Electromagnetic spectrum between 380 to 750 nanometer. The quality and quantity of the light source and the environment in which the teeth and shade guides are being visually matched are important. So, in one study, evaluators obtained better visual shade matching in controlled, stable, constant, and standard full spectrum lighting than in ideal light. Lighting, we have a quality of light source. So we have to understand that the color temperature that is favorable for the 5500 Kelvin. Also, we have to understand this concept when we will take a good picture. We have to understand that the light source that we use for capturing the picture, because the light source is so important to get a perfect picture. So the same thing that you see between your eyes, the same things that you have to match in your picture, the same things that you have to do fabrication in your restorations, and the same shape and color of what your eye see. So the human vision we're talking about this also after the slide about the quantity of light source. What about it? That means for the dental operatory be between 18 to 28 lux for 28 lux for dental laboratory. We can see that optical prism, the white light contains all the light, all the colors. Okay, we have three basic colors, that is red and blue and yellow. Auxiliary light source. The auxiliary light source for shade matching should be intense enough to overcome the influence of the ambient light. It has been recommended that ratio to task shade matching to ambient light should be not exceed 3:1. Shade matching environment, all of us understand that the chroma of the environment should be carefully controlled, okay? So we have to remove lipstick, we have to take care of the walls, stuffed clothing, patients drape, and shade matching environment have a chroma of 4 Munsell units or less, which are the pastel of or the ideal neutral gray tones. When you make a good color replication, you will make a piece of art in your cases. A human vision. So the eye, under low lighting condition, only the rods are used, right? Only the rods are used. And in dark environment, we can distinguish only the two colors. The green and blue. For the cones, it's more active, more highlight, and it can match all the colors. So the rods are used under low lighting, the cones under higher lighting. And the rods is more sensitive to blue-green objects, and that means scotopic vision. For the cones, it means dark adaptation, okay? Dark adaptation called when we are changed from photopic to scotopic. Photopic, that means that the color vision under higher lighting. We need 40 minutes to be able to distinguish between the dark and light. So, for the visual shade matching, we have 4 definitions. We have to understand it carefully. We have metamerism. That means the color, two different colors. Okay, for example, we have pink and red. To be matched under a given lighting condition, but have different spectral reflectance. For example, we can see the pink and red, that they are the same color under a source of tungsten light, for example. So it appears to match under the operator light, for example, may no longer be satisfactory in daylight. What about fluorescence? Have you ever seen these teeth like this before? That means fluorescence. Its mismatch can occur if the dental restoration has different fluorescence than the natural tooth. So it doesn't play a significant role in color matching dental restorations. And unfortunately, most of patients, they prefer it, and I don't know how. Opacence means that natural teeth at their incisal edge has translucency. So that creates an effect in appearance bluish to white colors as the teeth are seen at different angles. So we can see the incisal edge how that the light is a scattering effect and creates these details. Color blindness. Most of women have the ability to distinguish between these colors, but 8% of the male population couldn't be able to distinguish between these colors. So that means color blindness. And now we're talking about the shade selection system. I always prefer Vita Classic. The most convenient method for selecting shade is available porcelain shade guide. Always take a shade of the incisal, body, and neck. Okay, never ever take the only one shade for your tooth, because your tooth, it's not a dull, or it's really a vital object. You have to care about each details in your structure, in your tooth structure. So the shade guide is arranged in 5 lightness level. This means that each lightness level has sufficient variation in chroma and hue to cover the natural tooth color space. This is in contrast to traditional shade guides, which are not uniformly spaced. Lightness is selected first, then chroma or saturation, and finally the hue. So when we are going to take the shade, we have to start by value, then chroma, after that hue. What does that mean? It means that when we are going to take the shade, you have to take the value. Value means that A1, A2, A3, A4, for example, and etc. Then you have to know value in the shade guide. We have to back to the first slides, for example. Okay, you can see that different colors replication. You can see here the value. The value B1, A1, B2, D2, A2, C1. Like this, we are going to the darkest in value. So try to choose first the value of the tooth and then the chroma. You can see how much the hue is constant with the chroma, saturation, and finally you can detect the hue of the color application, the hue, the actual color that you should do. We have many machines that detecting the shade matching light device. We can use dentine shade guide. Always take a shade before preparation and after preparation, and take the color of the ND color, that means the dentine shade color. And there is a system of IPS Empress Ivoclar Vivadent provides specially colored dye materials that match the dental shade guide, and send it to lab. Okay, after preparation, send it to lab. That the dye of this tooth that I prepared is, for example, ND3 or ND9. What does that mean? That means when your tooth is dark, the laboratory should match the core of this tooth to cover and mask the ND of this tooth, of this darker tooth, to make the core of the restoration same matching of the color of the adjacent teeth, and then he can start to build up the core to make it at the seam of the adjacent teeth and make it vital as much as he can by taking care of anatomic and the light reflection on the structures. Surface corrections of these errors include surface characterization, include custom shade guides in the shade matching process. We can see custom shade guide, and it's gonna help us to do shade replication, but I always prefer when I have problem in shade matching, I can go for composite and do matching with the color application and translucency and so on. So I'll give you some points that will help you, and remember always to try and practice and try to make your eyes as the same of what you see in the actual and what you will do fabricate and then what you will transfer to the patient's mouth. So try to use photos, try to use composite fillings, try to use machine, try to use your eyes, whatever. But you have to achieve the actual color replication. Shade matching should be made under balanced lighting. It's so important that the lighting should be balanced. And shade matching environment with gray or pastel color walls compete. Anything on the patient that influences the shade matching, including bright ink color, clothing, lipstick, should be draped, and lipstick should be removed. Also take care of your gloves, any color that affects taking shade. The teeth to be matched should be clean and should be made at the beginning of the patient's visits. Cheek retractors should be used to provide an unhindered intraoral shade matching area. Choices of shade tabs should be expanded by using several shade guides. The technician should be asked to mix the porcelain in equal amount to obtain an in-between shades. The patient should be viewed at eye level. Yani don't take the shade by 12 o'clock or by 6 o'clock. You have to take the shade by the same eye level at the working distance of approximately 10 inches or 25 centimeters. Wetting the surface of both tooth and shade tab helps remove the differences. Shade matching should be made quickly, less than 5 seconds, with the shade tab places directly next to the tooth being matched. The dentist should rest his eye between viewings by focusing on the neutral color surface immediately before the matching. To select the appropriate hue, the canine tooth is recommended for comparison. The dentist can select an appropriate value by squinting. The number of shade tabs should be reduced and separated to approximately 3 as quickly as possible. 14. Shade matching should be confirmed at 1 or 2 other visits and under several different lights. Okay. If an exact match can't be selected and you can't match the color, shade tab with the lower chroma and highest value should be selected. The dentist should match the polychromatic nature of the tooth being with one of the following. First of all, shade distribution chart, digital image, for example, or staining on the closet matching shade tab. We can see how the shade distribution chart by machine. We can see how it's going to be. Where's the translucent place, the opaque, the orange stains, whatever. The Vita shade, it's easy shade and measuring system. Okay. It's color measuring instruments. It's gonna help you when you have to fabricate the actual shade. But for me, I prefer my eyes to do matching the color replication. The shade, you can see how the image is uploaded and viewed, how we can transfer it by scanning, sending by mail to the dental office, and do fabrication and printing by knowledge machine. It's gonna be easy and very well. But for me, I still find that the traditional ways is much better. And I'm thinking that in the future, maybe we're not back to the traditional ways at all. We can use composite fillings to do actual shade of the tooth in translucent, the location of spots, stains, cracks, and so on. So always try to make a good communication between you and the dental lab, and how to understand the patient desires and how to translate all the patient desires to a paper between you and dental lab office to make the restorations make sense for your patients. So communication must be taken seriously. Each person can interpret the last person differently with disastrous results. So patient wants, dentist says, technician hears. So try always to make a good communication with lab. Try to send him the pictures and the before and during procedure, final procedure, and let him know the actual shade for the ND color of the tooth preparation, because any error, it will not make a good treat for your dental work office. So the errors that is associated with the application of the selected shade with dental porcelain are related to the underlying metal used, or the ND color that it's not masked well by the core, the patch of porcelain powder, the brand of porcelain, the number of times glazing was performed. So we can see that we can arrive at matched restoration, but we have to make a good fabrication between dental work at the office and dental lab. We can understand that the aesthetic, how it's important. We have to understand the high lip, average, and low lip. We can know that the affected of the gum smile and smile arc of our final aesthetic analysis, and how important of buccal corridor refers to the space between the cheeks and teeth, and affects also the shadows of the cheeks on the teeth. We have to understand these elements, so it's gonna help us to understand how to analyze the smile arc and make a good smile for our dentist. We can understand that buccal corridor, maybe it will be medium buccal corridor, large buccal corridor, or no buccal corridor. We can make it by computer. Try always to understand also the proportions, because aesthetic depends largely on proportions. Anything that we see, it's very nice, it depends on a perfect proportion or golden proportion. So the posterior to the first molar was considered the most attractive and youthful. Anatomy of a smile. The caliper always extends to the golden proportion. I talked about this in my previous lecture for the digital smile design and how to do smile analysis and how to make the proportion of the smile. So studies of simulated smiles have revealed that designing prostheses to match the golden proportion is by no means optimal, except for patients in whom incisor length may be increased after periodontal disease. So the ideal smile, the proportion of the ideal smile is 80% off, and when we're going to 70% off, it will be smaller and taller. When we're going to 90, it will be more square. The ideal teeth size also should be understood. The midline, genders, slight smile, and morphology of the smile. So an understanding of the science of color is crucial for success. Limitation in materials and techniques may make a perfect color match impossible. A harmonious restoration can be achieved. Shade matching should be approached in a methodical and organized manner. Newly developed shape systems and instruments may help the practitioner achieve a reliable restoration. Match knowledge of the optimal proportion and the relative position of the teeth to each other and the soft tissue is essential. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope it makes sense.